Hi, everybody. This is Bob Burge with the Indiana Department of Workforce Development. Thanks for joining us today. We have a very special program planned today, and we appreciate your time and attention. I'm actually going to stall for the first minute or so. We have hundreds of businesses that have signed up and registered for today's program, and they're still logging on. So I'm going to go over a couple housekeeping items as we get started. The audio selection, when you dial in, you got a couple options to select. The voice over IP option is kind of the best practice. That's what most people use. But we also know people are also calling in on their phones, and so that's another option there. So we want to make sure you can hear us today, and so that's it on audio options. Questions are an important part of today's program. So you'll see in the upper right-hand side the ability to send us questions, and we probably won't be able to get all of them today, but send us your questions, and those we don't get to, Daryl and his team will get back to you soon. So send us your questions, and also today's program, there's a lot of information to come. Today's program is being recorded, so tomorrow you'll get a link to a video of today's program, so you'll be able to go back and review anything and share anything you may have missed. So we also have some polling questions. At the beginning, we're going to start out and find out a little bit more about you, and so we know how to steer today's program. So with that, I want to introduce today's presenters. First, Daryl Zeck is the Executive Director of the Indiana Office of Work-Based Learning and Apprenticeship. Daryl, thanks so much for leading today's discussion.
Yeah, glad to be here and glad we can do this. I think it's a super way to get the message out there and help a lot of folks with this very important work that we're doing, and I think is very important to the workforce and for businesses. And knowing that firsthand, so 18 months ago when we stood the office up, I came out of aerospace manufacturing, where I was a vice president and kind of oversaw day-to-day operations, but more importantly, workforce development. And like many of the people, or probably everybody that's on with us today, certainly seen a shortage of human capital, and that got to a point where it was not only the daily operations that were affected by that, but certainly business growth. So a lot of industry experience out there in building these things and being pretty successful at those, and that's how we've really structured the office as well.
Also with us today is Carrie Lively. Carrie, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do for the office.
Definitely similar to Daryl, I came out of an industry of education where we were seeing some of the very similar issues with workforce and preparing students for post-high school. My background is in K-12 education. I've been a school teacher, a school counselor, and a school administrator. And understanding the next step beyond high school, where students and parents get a lot of the conversation that college is the best next step for everyone. Knowing that we weren't serving our students well, we had to come up with a better plan, and being able to connect students with the jobs and the opportunities within our community while in high school, not only getting them interested in real opportunities, but also filling the pipeline for our local employers was important, and became a focal point of what I was doing in the K-12 sector, and it merged really well with what Daryl was doing here with the office.
Okay, so I know 2019 has been a great year for your office, Daryl. I know things have really exploded, really all around the state. So it's an exciting time, and we appreciate your time this morning. First, we're going to do a couple quick polling questions. So the first one, we're going to launch it, and you'll see it on your screen, and we're simply going to ask, where's your company located? For those of you that don't have it in front of you, Central Indiana, Northwest Indiana, Northeast Indiana, Southwest, and Southeast. And Daryl, while they're answering this, can you tell us a little bit about the regions and how you guys have your office set up?
So when we first started the office, which was in June of 2018, it was Carrie and I, and from there, over the course of the next couple of months, hired an operations coordinator, and then not until March of 2019, we hired our first what we call the regional director of work-based learning. And the structure in the office going forward was to have a pretty small footprint in downtown Indianapolis here at the Department of Workforce Development, but more importantly, grow this actually out in the regions and in the state. So we've hired people eventually in all 12 regions of the state, but right now we've got them all covered. Some folks are covering maybe 2 or 3 regions right now, but they're there, so they live and have worked in those regions. They know people, they know the partnerships there, and kind of what the needs are. So really working on a local or regional level is much more important than building something and trying to dictate that from downtown Indy.
Well, here's the good news from the first polling question. We do have people on from all over the state. So as you can see there, the slim majority are from central Indiana, and then we go to northeast Indiana next, northwest Indiana, but southwest and southeast Indiana is also represented. So good news is we have good representation there. The next question we're going to fire out there to you is, we want to know about sectors, and we only have 5 options. And so if you can go ahead and let us know what sector you're in. And Daryl, can you speak to this just a little bit, because there's actually one of the major sectors for the state that's missing, agriculture.
Yeah, agriculture, certainly. We've built programs, and when we say build programs, we'll get into that, so you'll see the details of that here in a minute, but whether it's registered apprenticeship or state earn and learns, really across all 6 of those key economic sectors. So that's been pretty important. Usually when we talk about apprenticeship, there's that stigma, and we see that the manufacturing industry understands that. People think of our work there as kind of dirty and low paying, and it's anything but that nowadays. Going to community college is something less than. And here again, when you use that term apprenticeship, people go right to the trades. You're a construction or union construction person, and that's just simply not true. We've got, I think we ended the year with 1,068 different occupations across registered apprenticeship. So, yeah.
Okay, so here's the good news. Again, like that, we have all sectors represented. So again, leading the way is manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, but right behind that is IT, building and construction, health and life sciences at 16%, and even transportation and logistics. So all the sectors are represented today. So good general discussion for everyone. I know you're going to be doing some specialized programs later on the next couple of months for individual sectors, correct?
Correct.
All of those are scheduled. Yes. Okay, so let's get things going. Let's jump right in. And again, the title of today's program is How Indiana Businesses Can Build Their Workforce Pipeline. It's all about the pipeline. Let's jump in and talk a little bit about your office and how it all works.
Yeah, so we'll try not to bore you too much with government PowerPoint here. It is what it is. We're going to give just some background information real quick first for those of you that don't know DWD's purpose and kind of where we fit in. When Governor Holcomb stood the office up, the Department of Workforce Development was the right place to do that. Previously, DWD kind of oversaw and administered workforce operations, which most people are familiar with in our Work One centers, unemployment insurance program. Those are the 2 big ones that people know. And now us being stood up as a third and equal pillar, work-based learning and apprenticeship, that entire system falls in here. Just as a quick note, if you've not heard of this, I can't imagine why we haven't, but NextLevel Jobs, there's 2 grants that employers may want to take a look at. The first one specific to employers is the Employer Training Grant. There's funds available for programs like the ones that we're going to talk about today. The other one is the Workforce Ready Grant, kind of goes with the individual, but again, knowing that as an employer, that's additional funding that could potentially be leveraged when you're hiring folks or bringing them into a program like this.
Okay, and I just want to throw in, if people that are more interested in NextLevel Jobs, nextleveljobs.org is the place to get started, and you'll find out more there if you want to move forward.
Correct. So over the next 10 years, we're looking at kind of a reduction in available employees in the state, potentially. About 1 million plus jobs over the next 10 years are going to need to be filled. About 300,000 of those are due to increase in expansion and so forth, new jobs that are there. But that big number of about 700,000 plus are due to retirements. And of course, we're talking mostly about baby boomer retirements right now. So that's kind of the challenge that we have over the next 10 years.
Okay, so we're going to go through some background data now. You're going to talk some more numbers, right? And how all
just kind of see how it all fits together and why this is important that we've developed the programs like this and why this is so key to the governor and the commissioner here at DWD. So adults in Indiana, some people are pretty surprised by this, that we've got almost 500,000 adults in Indiana that do not have a high school diploma. And out of that, about 50% when they enroll in adult education are doing so below the 6th grade level. So that piece from the adult side is kind of problematic for us. Indiana is really doing a good job of getting people into the adult education space, though, and getting their HSEs. We're actually one of the top in the country for completions on that, but still, obviously, with those numbers, a pretty big problem for us. So when we look at high school, about 80,000, I say potential high school graduates per year. Potential because about 9,000 of those right off the bat aren't graduating. 25,000 don't know what they're going to do other than get some job somewhere. The ones that head off to college, about 45,000 of those, only 30,000 are really completing within 6 years. And if you look at the kind of the sidebar there, about 30% of college freshmen are dropping out by the end of the first year. So the big result down at the bottom there is that we've got nearly 62% of our high school seniors 6 years past that senior year do not have a credential that's post-secondary. So between the adults and the youth, that kind of sets the stage for us having an issue. And again, back to what the governor, DWD, and Department of Ed are doing about that right now are good things, but we certainly wanted you to see the data as to why we're doing this.
So clearly the people are out there. It's just a matter of getting them the skills and the training.
They're definitely out there. I mean, we don't necessarily yet, and you'll see here in just a second, have a population issue per se. We still need more people coming in, into the state, but we really need the people that are here to be skilled up in the right way. This one looking at, so we talk about the traditional pathways, and that's finishing high school, of course, on time and in good shape, and then moving on to a 4-year university or college and finishing there in 4 years and going and getting that job that everybody thinks is going to be available. But, that's been the traditional way of speaking, but, I kind of challenge that with maybe we've got a new traditional college student. I'm not going to read through all of these, but if you look, 20% of them are at least 30 years old right now. 25% are caring for a child. Some are going almost half part-time at some point in time. So completions, those numbers are down for various reasons. And you look again, is this truly our new traditional college student? Probably. So there's a lot of barriers to completion, or at least completion on time, as we say.
Next, we're going to go back, I think, about 100 years or so and take a look at the labor force and population.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. So going forward, looking at the trends that we have over the next 35 years, it's expected from 2015 that we're going to add about 660,000 residents, which is good, about a 10% increase there. The population will certainly climb, but if we look, there's only a handful of metro areas that really will drive that new growth. And if you look at the Indy metro area, there's 520,000 of the 660 are in that central part of the state.
Okay.
So that's pretty problematic for everywhere else, having 59 of the 92 counties projected to lose population over the next 35 years.
And this next one, I think, shows historical.
Yeah, historically, here's where we've been, and you can see that we've had, pretty decent increases through the years and through the decades there. But if you look at the level from like the 50s through the year 2000, the level at increase definitely now as we move from 2010 forward, much lower than what we've seen in the past. And that trend is also going in the wrong direction for us. So a couple of quick, easy reasons as to why we see that slower growth. Short term, certainly the Great Recession, with that a sharp decline in fertility rates and families and how that's being developed nowadays. And then if you look at the average annual net migration, we went from 9,200 per year last decade to just 3,200 between 2010 and 2018. So all of those warm and fuzzy statistics that we just gave kind of asks the question or begs the question, right? So how do you set people up so that they can kind of complete those programs that lead to promising careers? And why do we keep selling that one-size-fits-all solution, which, Carrie will talk about here in a minute too, but that's the thing even at high schools now. And I'll say in the most recent past anyways, a lot of that preparation was to get students ready for that 4-year college pathway. And that's just not simply needed really anymore. The 4-year college certainly isn't that pathway, but not lumping everybody into one category. Go ahead. So this is what we're hearing from employers, and for all of you on this webinar today, I'm sure you've said it. You know, you need people today, and then if we can get you past that, it's that long-term growth that you need to sustain. All meaning that number one obstacle to business growth, which I mentioned early in my intro, is that supply of human capital and not enough qualified candidates. There's, again, back to what Bob said earlier, there's people that are out there, there's population that's there, but are they really qualified with the correct skills that we need? So our office, and really everybody should feel pretty comfortable in using our office as a tool. We're here for technical assistance and expertise on these things, because the folks that are in the office now have been there, done these things that you're really in need of. So there's a lot of expertise that you can see there, and a lot of current partnerships that when we come to a business and we're there to help kind of drive this piece of increasing human capital and developing that talent pipeline and filling it, there's a lot of partners that we potentially can bring along too to kind of leverage what they offer as well.
And Daryl, I do want a quick time out. I had several questions come in asking about today's presentation, and just a reminder for everybody, lots of good information, lots of data. Don't worry. Tomorrow you'll get a link that'll have it all there. So I've had several folks already chime in, and yes, you will be getting a copy of this tomorrow.
Yes. So the three main objectives of the office, there were several within the executive order signed by Governor Holcomb creating the office, but it really boils down to these three. You know, we coordinate efforts with the U.S. Department of Labor to expand registered apprenticeship programs. Developing and implementing a framework of work-based learning pathways is number two, and probably the most important thing we do, because you can build programs all day long. If you don't have the partnerships there to actually implement those, that's an issue. So building public-private partnerships statewide based on what your needs are is critical to this office. When we talk about work-based learning, just so everybody's kind of on the same page with this, it can mean very different things. So work-based learning, if you will, treat that as kind of the umbrella over these different pathways that are there. Even a robust job shadowing program is very important. It's an important component to work-based learning when we're looking at trying to get people interested in the occupations that you may have. And when we say it's important, we're working on kind of a program, a good turnkey program for businesses to utilize, because even having somebody come in, whether they're an adult or a student, let's use the youth student in this case, if you pair them with the wrong individual and they spend 2 or 3 hours with them, if they've had a good experience, then when they get back to school, it may get pried out of them by the teacher, right, to tell the rest of the students in class how their experience was. If it's a bad experience, that kid's texting 30 of their friends before they leave the parking lot, right, saying, hey, this is a bad deal, don't do this.
And a good match, just the opposite. It could be just that spark to get them on that.
Absolutely, yeah. So really don't ever overlook job shadowing and the impact that can have. So career and tech ed through the schools, certainly work-based learning included in that. Internships, both at the high school and college level, are an important item as well, and we do quite a few of those. Adult ed, combining that with some on-the-job training, not just classroom work. We've seen a lot of really good things happen when we do that. And then the two comprehensive programs at the top there that we really build from the ground up based on what the employer needs are is our State Earn and Learn, or SEALs. It's kind of a state-level apprenticeship, if you will, excuse me, and then registered apprenticeship with the Department of Labor.
Okay.
So back to those million-plus jobs that we need to fill, we know that about half of those, maybe even over half, are going to require something more than high school, but less than a 4-year degree. So again, it's not that one-size-fits-all program of that 4-year degree pathway. Looking at certificates and technical certificates, even associate degrees and certain industry certifications are earning people good spots out there that are well-paying jobs. In work-based learning, we really stress this. It really is for everybody. So those folks even going on to a 4-year school, that work-based learning component in high school, and then just as important in college. We do have people graduating college nowadays with bachelor's or master's degrees that have never had any type of work experience. So it shouldn't be treated as the alternative. It's not just for career tech education. STEM fields, certainly think in there. Engineering, lots of work-based learning needed in there. Coming out of a pretty engineering-heavy field that I was in within aerospace, there were plenty of theoretical engineers, we'll say, that were out there that went from classroom to cubicle and quite honestly designed things that you physically can't make because we've never gotten into the shop, never out into the production field to understand how those things work. So there's stigmas attached to it, just like community college and some of the other things we mentioned earlier, but together I think we kind of work through that and build a better program.
And that last slide about stigma and the credentials required for the jobs that are going to be coming available or that are available, that's a message that has not really been conveyed to our educators, to our teachers, to our students and our parents. The message for the last 20 or 25 years has been you graduate high school the same way and you go on to college and you get a job. And that's kind of the message, whether explicitly or implicitly, that's really what's conveyed to our students and our parents. So in 2018, the State Board of Education decided to do something about changing that messaging, and they came up with some new graduation requirements. So what you see on the slide right now are the new high school grad pathways. Prior to these grad pathways, a student had to pass a series of 40 credits to graduate. They had to pass an ISTEP exam in English and algebra, and that deemed that they were ready for post-secondary or whatever was available for them after high school. The State Board of Education really looked at that and investigated kind of how we were not setting up our students and our business leaders for success in the future, and seeing some of those doom and gloom statistics that Daryl shared earlier really reacted with new grad pathways. So students in the class of 2023, so that's our current freshman class, have a new set of standards to graduate against. And so if you see on the screen, there's kind of these three boxes. Box one is earning their high school diploma, and that's meeting the graduation requirements by taking the right courses, earning the right credits in those courses, English, math, science, social studies, some electives. That's really kind of what hasn't changed over time. But really looking at box 2 and 3 is where we see this innovative approach to getting students experience and exposure to the world of work while in high school. So box 2 is really learning and demonstrating the employability skills, and that can be done through a project-based learning, a service-based learning, or a work-based learning experience. Really getting students out, engaged with their community, seeing what's available to them, seeing how their natural abilities and skills fit in with those opportunities in the community is a focus and now a requirement to graduate. And then box 3, being post-secondary ready. Displaying like a menu of I think there's 9 options on that menu of how you can display these competencies. That can be by getting a qualified ACT or SAT score, or earning an honors diploma, an ASVAB score. Lots of academic focus in there, but if you'll see in red, it's really the red text that is letting you know these are focused on getting credentials or work-based skills that are applicable to a student in the workforce. So anything in red on this grad pathway document is where our office really focuses on building out programming that's aligned to not only help a student graduate, but to also get a student who has the skills and abilities to fulfill jobs within their community.
And Carrie, I had a question come in. Does your staff work directly with employers?
We do.
Okay.
We work directly with employers to understand what their needs are, and then if they're looking at a youth pipeline, understanding what the requirements are for youth to be able to fill those needs.
Okay.
I will add real quick as one of those former employers, don't run away from this thinking that we're getting into something that's really complex and costly and so forth. So stick with us, and these things can be very simple to implement. They're very turnkey, and we really structure them to make them very cost effective for you, and we can certainly get into that later.
This is the program of the DOL Registered Apprenticeship. So these are the 5 kind of components that are involved in a registered apprenticeship program. And if you think back to the wheel that Daryl shared with all of the different type of work-based learning components, This was kind of at the top of the wheel. The Registered Apprenticeship Program is a tried and true method. It's been implemented across Indiana, across the nation for years. Really looking at businesses getting involved and figuring out what their on-the-job training will look like, what skills individuals need to complete an occupation, rewarding individuals for gaining those skills throughout the Registered Apprenticeship Program, and then earning that national occupational credential. So Daryl mentioned there's over 1,000 occupations that are available, and these are growing by the numbers. We see everything from IT to healthcare to construction trades to manufacturing with registered apprenticeship programs. These are great programs. A lot of times these are extensive, where individuals go through a 4 to 7 year training. They're really highly focused, highly skilled occupations, and we have partnerships with the Department of Labor that helps our business friends get those planned out and implemented and help to sustain and grow those programs. We are expanding those programs, the Registered Apprenticeship Program, that's part of a focus of our office, and really looking at helping to support our local workforce boards and becoming intermediaries and helping to be a point person for our development and expansion of these registered apprenticeship programs.
And Daryl, I don't mean to brag on your group, but Indiana is among the leaders nationally in this area, right?
In apprenticeships?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some stats at the end that we'll show you, but we're still waiting on the 2019 numbers to see where we rank. I know 2018 we were number 2 in the country, behind only California, for the number of new apprentices that we had. And then from a completion standpoint, which is probably more important, lots of people can start programs, but how many are really finishing? Indiana does a really good job with our wraparound services to ensure completion on these, and we were number 3 in the country, behind only California and New York.
That's outstanding.
So, and then one thing to add to what Carrie was saying about working with our regional workforce boards, one thing that's also unique, I think there's maybe one other state now that we've found that's doing it this way, but in turning our workforce boards, or regional boards, or work ones, if you will, into registered intermediaries with DOL, that's going to help us. We receive federal funding from time to time, and being able to take those dollars again from here within DWD and sending those out to the regions where they can be more impactful is very important. So doing it that way, and everybody's ears should perk up. There's potential funding this way for some of these programs, and working with the regional boards will be very important going forward.
So moving on to the next slide is the state earn and learn model. So looking back at that DOL registered apprenticeship model and the 5 components, you'll see those 5 components mirror or mimic what happens at the state level as well. So really focusing on a state earn and learn to build a pipeline of skilled individuals for the jobs that you have. We're looking at that partnership with both education and business, creating an on-the-job training program, which is going to train an individual, a student, an adult for an occupation, coupling that with related instruction, either at the post-secondary level, the secondary level, wherever that seems to fit best. Again, rewarding individuals for skill gain as they become more skilled and more valuable to you, the return on the investment of working with these individuals and preparing them for the jobs that you have, leading to industry-recognized certifications. And the state earn and learn that we build out, we're talking about multiple certifications. We're talking about multiple dual credits. So really, you're getting an individual who has 1,000 hours of on-the-job training and related instruction, understands the climate and culture of your job, of your business, and they have either an associate's degree or a CT or a TC with one of our community colleges. Saving if there's a training program that you offer your individuals, it's saving you money on the long-term education and training that you would be investing in those individuals as well. So really a program that's structured and scalable. We've had programs built in construction trades that have been replicated across the state. They're scalable. They are fitting the needs that you have as employers, fitting the needs that individuals have as either high school students or adults, and meeting you both in the middle there.
Yeah, I did have another question come in, actually 3 of them related. And I think you're going to touch on this at the end, Daryl. Hey, people are in. They're getting excited already on the call. They want to know how they can start. You're going to cover that at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Easy to get started.
So through the SEAL certification process, our SEALs are state earn and learn because we love acronyms here at the state. So when we talk about our state earn and learn, it's the SEAL. And there's kind of this 9-step process that we go through just to make sure that we're vetting and verifying. We're building programs that are really filling the needs that you have. They're not just indirect needs for right now, but long-term and sustainable programs. So looking at identifying what the
let's go through each one in detail. Not
looking at what your needs are and verifying that we can find support to build out programming. Really talking about solution development. We can go to the next slide as well. Identifying appropriate training and education sources, figuring out what the metrics are and the measured outcomes. Really, the last piece that we look at is funding. A lot of times the funding comes down to individuals, depending on if you're working with high school students or adult population. There's lots of different funding streams that could lead to offsetting the cost of training and education of these individuals.
And your team is here to help with some of that detail.
Our team is here to help with all of that detail.
Great, yeah. And everything that you see on here, again, don't let it scare you too much because 90% of what you saw through those 9 steps is all done behind the scenes. That's the work that we do, again, to get to the point where we're handing you a real turnkey solution to this.
So we've talked about the state earn and learn, and this is what it looks like on paper. This is an example of a state earn and learn we have built with a high school, Garrett High School up in near the Fort Wayne area. They are working in construction trades. They have a kind of a program built that's really unique to Garrett, where students in elementary school and middle school have an opportunity to experience the world of construction and manufacturing, and really have an opportunity to identify if that's the route they want to pursue. So in middle school, students have access to career development and career exposure in those 2 sectors. And then in high school, they can really dive deep into those 2 different fields. So you see down at the bottom where the courses at school, 10th grade students are taking, geometry and construction. So really looking at focusing their core courses with a lens of construction trades. Once they go through their courses in 10th grade, they really ramp on to the state earn and learn as a junior. And you'll see in that yellow box, year 1, as a junior, students are getting certification through courses at their high school. In the NCCER field, they're getting 3 certifications, equating to 270 hours. They're getting work-based learning experience, equating to 360 hours. So they're leaving their junior year in high school with 630 hours of related instruction and on-the-job training in construction trades. They're working with business partners who are getting them applied skills, and they're learning they're taking what they're learning in the classroom and applying it on the job. They continue through their sophomore year, their senior year now, and getting additional certifications and additional work-based learning, graduating high school with 7 industry-recognized certifications, over 1,200 hours of on-the-job experience, and this is equating to the employers that they're working with are giving them credit for prior learning and moving into a registered apprenticeship program. So students are getting their first 2 years of their registered apprenticeship program completed in high school. That benefits the student, that benefits the employer as well, because they graduate and are closer to their journeyman status than if they would have started right after high school.
A huge reduction in cost there for the employer as well.
And I did have a question come in about, do high school apprentices get paid for these kind of positions?
They do.
Okay.
And that's another thing our team can help with, understanding child labor laws and all of those caveats that go around with working with students who are under the age of 18.
Great. So we've got more examples here. We're gonna go through the next one. We'll pass through it on the screen. It's another one for youth, but want to ensure that people know that we're building these for both youth and adults. So you can have underemployed or unemployed adults people that are coming through the Work One centers, for instance, that we can get into these programs just like we do in youth. So we're definitely not focused just on youth, but certainly started there. So the next one is one that we've done in manufacturing down south with Perry Central. But if we go to the next one, there's an adult one, Carrie, if you want to talk about this. This is specific to adults.
Definitely. This is with the Indiana Office of Technology and identifying individuals who have an interest in technology and IT. It's a shorter completion time. So individuals are going through this in 12 months, which is really responsive to the needs that we have at IoT. They need people, they need them now, and they need them trained well. So being able to build out a structured, scalable program in a shorter amount of time was key in our conversations with IoT. But looking at the certifications that were built in, CompTIA, with those Microsoft Windows and the OS, these individuals are hired by IoT and being paid while they're going through phase 1 and phase 2. They're leaving as a system administrator with industry recognized certifications. They're CT from Ivy Tech. So that's a certificate from Ivy Tech identifying that they have help desk and support, IT support, over 2,500 hours of OJT, and then the 33 transferable credits. So this is kind of the system that we build out, multiple certifications, multiple credits, leading to a highly skilled individual who can complete the occupations that they're trained for. And this is another example of an adult state earn and learn. This example is a little bit different. It is tackling some of the statistics that Daryl showed about the almost 500,000 individuals without their adults or without their high school equivalency. So we're taking individuals without an HSE. We are skilling them up alongside getting their HSE while getting certifications to work within the Department of Workforce Development, getting certifications in their Microsoft Office, with some LinkedIn learning, some HR certifications as well, retail certifications. They're going through, they're getting Ivy Tech credit. They're getting enough Ivy Tech credit to be Pell eligible, so we take that into consideration as well, understanding that as we're taking an individual through, if we can tap into multiple funding streams and get an individual able to continue their education while they're working, that's a win for everyone involved. But an individual will go through 24 weeks of this program, and upon completion have 12 credits that are transferable into the business courses at Ivy Tech, 5 industry recognized certifications, and be a full-time employee here with DWD.
I do have a question that came in related to this. It says, can you utilize a SEAL certification, which we just talked about, with a registered apprenticeship?
Absolutely. So we see that first and foremost within the youth space. So the first one that we showed with Garrett High School, the first 2 years, so the junior and senior year, that's with our state earn and learn or a SEAL, and then they roll right into the registered apprenticeship with 2 years full credit, and that typically would be a 4-year registered apprenticeship to the journeyman card. So they're getting that 2 years earlier. The costs are reduced for the employer there as well. So yeah, and we've seen this in healthcare, manufacturing, and construction so far, where we've utilized both of those comprehensive programs together. And the examples that we gave you are just examples. So each one of those formats can be adjusted anyway for your company, certainly. And the last one that we're showing here with the adult ed component to that, some of this is very similar to the MyCook pathway, if any of you have heard of that or are familiar with that. Again, we're that simultaneous training and education to ensure that they're getting that high school equivalency, they're gaining the skills that they need or certifications to be productive workers within the same company. So it's good for the individuals, it's good for your community, and certainly for your company.
And some of these Ivy Tech courses actually come to the employer, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ivy Tech will, if they're very close to campus, they can learn on campus and go through the classes like that. But Ivy Tech will also go, if there's a cohort that you're putting through at the company, Ivy Tech has come onto the company premises and actually taught classes there as well.
Now we're going to talk about options.
Yes, absolutely. So, couple of different ones. People often look at this, registered apprenticeships typically have a sponsor or an intermediary. What's different about our state earn and learns, those programs are typically either company owned. So if a company says, hey, I need to hire, probably 5 people a year in this particular occupation, we can build a state earn and learn for that. They could be a company that says, I need 100 people a year. Well, we build the same thing and structure it maybe a little bit differently that way. Or it could be a school owned. As an example, we have a school down south in southern Indiana. They own the seal, if you will, in welding as one of the examples. They have multiples. The school runs the program. They do the related instruction piece in the classroom at the school, and then those students go out to 5 different employers in there who may only need to hire a few each year upon graduation. So it works out really well that way. Same thing regionally. You could have multiple employers come together and say, hey, 90% of what we all need we agree upon, and we can create a program for that. Same thing with sector. Along with those comprehensive programs that we're talking about, SEALs and apprenticeship, there's some pretty easy ones to get into that we've got listed there on the left that are either no cost or low cost. So just classroom visits and starting that interaction with students either at the high school or college level can be very important, other than time, and we know time is money, but no additional cost there. One of the best things I ever did within the aerospace company that I was at, we did pretty much everything that you see on the left-hand side there. But the open houses that we had in the evening time, we brought the parents in. And that was key when you're starting to really change that thought process about what's going to happen to these students later on, and especially for parents that think that certain occupations are unreachable.
Is there any time of year that's better for that, or is it throughout a school year?
Do it any time that you can do it. Working with and partnering with the schools, they can kind of set that up, whether it's at the beginning of a semester or not. But internships can be pretty low dollar as well, and the rest you can see there.
And I think a lot of times we focus those visits, open houses, on high school students, and a lot of times high school students are too late. It's too late. They've already identified what they want to do in their program alignment with the courses in high school. So really focusing on middle school and younger students is where you're going to get the best bang for your buck.
And that's an excellent point, because we learned that, I won't say the hard way, but after we did a number of these for high school students, which initially was where our focus was, hearing enough parents say, this is wonderful and the information you're giving us is great, but boy, we wish we had known that in middle school. And especially now when we're starting to really structure these things a little bit more and having them in certain pathways earlier, it's excellent.
I just had a question pop in. Are open houses for adults also? Do those also exist?
Yeah, I think a business could do that, certainly. I mean, and that's back to even the job shadowing for adults. So working real closely with your local work ones, where they've got adults coming in and not knowing whether they want to get into a certain training program or not, partnering with the businesses and having that open door for job shadowing whenever the business is available is very important.
Next, I think we're going to talk about pathways, right?
Yeah. So really think of these things, keeping it very simple. And again, what we've talked about can seem complex and costly, and it's not at all. The 2 components that we really rely on in building any of these programs is the related instruction piece and on-the-job training or on-the-job learning. The employee guidebook that we have, we're going to show you what a couple of those steps are, but that's available on our website as well. You can go to Indiana.
We have that at the end. Yeah,
do you have that at the end?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. We'll be able to show you exactly where that is on our website. Pulling the website up now. Okay, so on the website you'll see this, and you can look at it online, or it can be downloaded and printed if you wanted. But what we're going to do next, these couple of steps, you'll see through here, there's really 5, and the 6th step is going to be really to call us and get a hold of us. But certainly looking at skills, so that's one thing. Employers have got position descriptions. Some of them, they've had them for years, maybe decades. Really look at those and that shift towards what skills do we need. And if you need help with that, Skillful Indiana is an organization that was stood up just after this office was, really, and they have the expertise and can help businesses take those position descriptions and drill down to the skills that are needed, because that's what we're after when we drive in.
And they have 30 plus coaches throughout the state to help, right?
Correct.
And your office works with
Absolutely.
with them. Okay.
Yep. So, and then we kind of really focus on which pathways can the employer really support. So most employers don't do a real quick deep dive into registered apprenticeship. There may be some other things that you want to try first. That's fine. We can help with all of those and eventually maybe get you into one of the comprehensive programs. And we'll go through these pretty quick in the essence of time because your time's important, and we've got about 15 minutes left, I think.
So really the first step is looking at what your true needs are, identifying what you need as an individual or what you're looking for as an individual. A lot of times when we talk to employers, they say, I need someone to show up on time and pass a drug test. We need to look past that and really focus on, what those skills are that you need and how we can definitely identify a pipeline of employees to fill those skills.
The next two things kind of go hand in hand. That front door issue, as we call it, building these programs, building that pipeline and helping fill it really gets qualified employees in that front door to your front door. Equally important, or probably even more important, is what happens on the other side of that. So what's your internal system really look like? What's the company culture look like? This is where we talk about doing the things and making sure that these folks have got certain pathways within your company, both to advance and then from a skills standpoint and so forth. That really helps drive that turnover number down, and we'll share a little bit of that with you at the end here too. So step two, this goes back to looking at, this is something that Cook did, and looking at their local area, we'll say, or their regional area for employees. They found that they had, I think the number was around 23,000 adults in the regional area that were never going to be able to come work for them because they couldn't check that box that they had a high school diploma. So immediately there's a limiting factor that was there that sometimes we don't know about. So again, reevaluating the local workforce, what's out there and how can you remove some of those barriers. You'd probably be surprised about how many people that may open up to your company, both on the adult side and then youth side. Are there some secondary or post-secondary education programs that can benefit from what your company offers?
And getting that HSE is something DWD can help with, correct?
No doubt about it. We've got some of the best people, like I said, in the country that are working on that, and we've come a long way.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And then, as Daryl mentioned before, identifying a pathway that's going to be beneficial for you, picking up maybe something that's less of a lift with job shadows or high school CTE or student employee, may be a great start, figuring out what you're looking for and how to kind of dip your toe in the water, if you will, of what work-based learning looks like and how it could look for you. And then developing more comprehensive programs through internship or related instruction with on-the-job training, all the way through the state Earn and Learn and Registered Apprenticeship, which is going to be more of a lift, but you're also going to get a bigger return on the investment by really training an individual to do the jobs that you have available. Go ahead. And then looking at different partnerships, that's really where our team can bring people to the table for you, understanding both secondary and post-secondary, understanding training providers, understanding how all of the education systems align and work together, and being able to create a program that has a solid education foundation that not only benefits you, but benefits the individual going through it, creating a partnership with schools or with regionally based employers or training centers, and getting that pipeline directly to your door.
So step 5 is pretty basic there, just looking for the information to make sure that we're all on the same page. One thing that I will say that we've run into at times where, the go-to person is typically going to be somebody in HR. But you've got to understand that if there's limitations in there and or you don't have a buy-in from either a CEO or a COO, whoever's signing the checks, right, that's equally important as we move through this, because you don't want that to be a barrier at some point in time. So having them involved in the conversations up front is extremely important as well. Step 6 is really the call us step. So after you complete those first 5 steps and you've got the basic information that we need, and we can certainly walk through all 5 of those things with you as well, but if you've really gone through there and done that initial work, that's very helpful when you end up talking to us. When we come up with a plan, depending on the pathway that you pick, we're usually done within weeks for those things. It's not months. This doesn't take a year to do this. Depending on whether we're talking adult or youth, sometimes rolling the plan out may be dependent upon where the school system is within semesters or beginning of the year or so forth. But putting it together does not take us too long at all. Like I said, we've got really good foundational programs built and implemented throughout the state in all sectors now.
And Daryl, I know the Trilogy story is one that we're hearing more and more about, the partnership that your office has established. Tell us a little bit about what's going on at Trilogy.
Yeah, so I know on the next slide, don't go yet. We'll have some results there, but Trilogy has Trilogy Health Services. They're based out of Louisville, Kentucky, but they have facilities. It's long-term care, assisted living throughout 4 states: Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, and Indiana. Indiana is their largest. They have 65 locations in Indiana, and for those of you that are kind of in that field out there, you know this turnover with certified nursing assistants is extremely high. The national average is like 150% turnover rate on those. So, and they have a lot there. Long story short, they have become the #1 company in the healthcare sector for registered apprenticeships throughout the entire country.
Wow.
And certainly the bulk of those are here within the state of Indiana. And I'm talking about thousands of registered apprentices there. But in addition to the RA program, what we've also done is built a state earn and learn for them backing into the high school. So again, like the Garrett model we talked about earlier, they use both of those in combination. So you've got students in high school completing a state earn and learn with credentials they're fantastic credentials for them. And we've got other similar companies that we've, again, tweaked those credentials. That's the beauty of the state earn and learn and being able to pivot pretty quickly on exactly what the employer needs. But those two things working together really done good things for Trilogy and helped with their business plan. Certainly, you can go to the next slide. We've got some numbers on there. So that highlight over there with Trilogy, utilizing both of those programs, they've got about a 40% turnover now versus that 150% industry rate. And once we started adding programs that are stepping through, like our state earn and learns, they've got built-in certifications each step along the way. And with Trilogy, of course, the individual's earning more money with the more certifications that they have there too. In really programming it that way, they've taken their I want to say their not their turnover rate, but anyways, their retention rate. They went from about 50% to about 82%, wow. I think. So huge gains there. The numbers at the bottom were mine. I had with high schoolers utilizing these programs. I had an 86% hiring retention rate from high schoolers. The adults going through like a state earn and learn, it was 100% hiring retention. In 4 years, we doubled our workforce, tripled our sales, and got our voluntary turnover rate down to 4%, which is wow. Almost unheard of in manufacturing. And then the numbers over to the right there, you can see we talked about those earlier, the second and third place. But within the past 18 months that we've been here, we've had a 193% increase in Hoosiers getting into work-based learning programs, and that's both youth and adult.
We're getting close to the 1 hour mark, but you got some final thoughts and things to share, and then I do got a couple questions. Again, there's been a ton come in, but we have time.
Absolutely.
A couple of minutes.
Yeah. So just real quick, the office and really DWD nowadays is really made up of business and industry professionals, education and workforce professionals. Of course, there's the old joke, we're from the government, we're here to help you. We truly are, and I can say, quite frankly, in the beginning, we really pushed the issue that, the office was made up of people that were just recently out there in industry and in the workforce and in education. But we are the government, and we're structured a little bit differently nowadays, and I think that's been great to see that change. We're definitely not micromanagers. We're not coming into your business to manage this thing or run these programs at all. We're not here to be bureaucratic barriers. We're looking for solutions, and we work hard every day, the entire team here, to get to yes for you. So, and we do that, connecting and engaging and building these things for you. We don't run them. So the government's not your business to run these programs. That's both at the state, and quite honestly, I can tell you at the federal level with registered apprenticeship, it's the same thing. And then the beauty of all of this at the end there is, of course, every once in a while we even provide funding, right? And that's always a good thing.
Okay, so great job, Carrie and Daryl. We have some questions that have come in. Before we let you go, let's jump into a couple of these. A question came in about cost. And we've talked about, you just touched on some of this, but there's a lot of proprietary for-profit things out there that pretend to do this and this. Aligning with your office, what kind of cost can an employer expect?
I can tell you that, utilizing the SEAL format, which of course we didn't know it at the time. Carrie was working on SEALs back in her own position with the schools, and I was doing the same thing in industry, and we really didn't call it that until we met in the office and said, this looks good. But utilizing that type of programming, my net cost for each of the employees that we were bringing in went way down. We were able to do that because from an adult standpoint, we're partnering with people like Ivy Tech that are going to run these folks through the tuition assistance piece. And as Carrie mentioned earlier, some of these people are Pell eligible, so that's a federal grant to try and take care of some of the education and training costs there. When we talk about on the youth side, if you're dealing with high schoolers, and this is the beauty of getting these kids into these programs earlier on, and not just your business getting to know them, but them getting to know you while they're in high school. That related instruction piece of either high school credit or dual credit, typically that's no cost to the company. Generally, you're paying them a little bit less per hour. Of course, as they gain in skill and are doing more work for you, those rates should obviously go up. But we're all about net cost in this, and anything we can do to drive that down, we will.
So they're not going to get an invoice from your office for monthly invoices for
zero. There's the other joke, right? I mean, we're from the government and we're here. I mean, most people will say pay taxes, and that's how we're here through that and other funding. So yeah, there's absolutely no additional cost to our services and coming in.
A related funding question, can NextLevel Jobs funding also be used? I know you had some Ivy Tech Workforce Ready grants, some other things out there. Can NextLevel Jobs
Absolutely. Funding? So people that have put together training programs, and have to get those things through the employer engagement team here, when you are looking at a registered apprenticeship or a state earn and learn, there's a box to check for that, and that is an automatic approval for that program. So
okay.
So it makes it even easier.
And that's both the adult and youth space.
Okay.
There's funding available for both.
And that buck stops in this office at the Department of Workforce Development. So again, it talks about your partnership. So how are you working with registered apprenticeships in the regions, looking at how you have that set up?
So that was back to the structure we talked about earlier, which is very different. So each of the regional workforce boards becoming intermediaries is extremely important because they are the ones that are really dialed into what's going on in the region, and certainly can build the programs based on need there. Again, it's not, a central state office that's taking a look at that and building that. You're really at the local level working with them. And again, what we're helping with is the technical assistance piece and certainly the funding and being able to get that out to the regions where it can be better utilized than someone over here kind of picking which program looks the best. So that's going to work very well for us, not just for today, but going forward, again, as those federal funds and under the Trump administration, they've really pushed hard for apprenticeship, and there's certainly some dollars that'll be coming down the pike, and we can simply move those dollars out into the region so people can take advantage of that.
A couple closing questions, kind of related. Students under 18, can they work on the manufacturing floor?
They definitely can. I think there's a misconception that students under 18 can't do certain jobs, manufacturing being one of them, and that's something that our team can definitely help navigate with you, both Indiana child labor laws and federal labor laws dealing with underage individuals. But short of it is yes. There are, I believe, 7 occupations that they cannot do. One of them is running a meat grinder. So very kind of obscure limitations with students, but there's definitely quite a bit that students can do.
And there's another one here about on the construction list related to heavy equipment operator training. Is that a possibility, heavy equipment operator training?
We are working through that as we speak. We have some horizontal construction going on, and we're building out a state earn and learn in that sector. So there are some things with heavy equipment operation that students can do. There are some things that students can't do as well. So it's just navigating that system and figuring out how to best connect the two.
And that's another beauty of this office. You guys are at the table. I mean, you're part of what gets done and what gets said, right?
Right.
So,
Absolutely. We are the connector between business and industry and education, which have for years been operating in silos, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, right? And we're certainly pulling all of that together with, again, industry and education both in one office.
Okay, hey, we've hit the top of the hour, and there's several more questions, but if we can pass those along to you guys, if you can follow up with those folks one-on-one. I do see perhaps the most important thing from today is on the screen right now, and it's the website, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of resources on there, so just inwbl.com, and if you go to, there is a resources page there. Take a look at those. Each of those links, it's pretty link heavy in there, but man, there's a lot of good information. And then if you go to the news section that's there, one thing to do is under news and media, up at the top, there's two videos. Click on the one you can click on both, but click on the one that's on the right that says Garrett Seal and watch that. I mean, it's going to be very helpful in understanding a little bit more of what we've talked about today. We talked a lot, we talked fast, but if you look at that, you'll get the perspective from the students, the school, the employer, in this office and how it really works. So,
and also on that page, I see the other webinars are listed.
Upcoming events, webinars are certainly there.
Sure. So, final comments. Carrie Lively?
It's not hard. It's not hard. That's kind of what we get to the table, and there's some work that goes along with it, but our regional directors have the experience and the expertise to be able to navigate and help answer questions and pull people to the table. So once you're committed to figuring out that this is a solution to the pipeline challenges, the process moving forward, it's not difficult. It's just making that next step.
And Daryl Zeck. Been there, done that. So the entire office has people that have had to do this out of pure necessity in the past. So take what we've learned and we make it pretty simple to get through. I think the foresight from Governor Holcomb in standing this office up, I think that we've gone well beyond what we thought maybe it was going to be, certainly, and we've still got a lot of growth to do within the office, but certainly pulling industry and education together, both for adults and youth, that's what we do day in and day out, and I think it's making a big difference. So. Great.
Well, Daryl and Carrie, thank you so much for your time, and we have gone beyond our hour, so with that, we're going to conclude today's program. And just a reminder that within 24 hours, you'll be receiving a link to the recording, and you'll be able to go back and review. It'll be in the form of an MP4 video. You can share it with others on your team, and certainly with that will be all the contact information that you'll need will be on the inwbl.com website. So with that, we are going to conclude on behalf of the Indiana Department of Workforce Development. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk with you soon.